Welcome back to The Elderly Health Physician, where we bring you the wisdom of Korean medicine combined with the best of modern science to help you thrive after 60. I am your host, John, and today I need to begin with something that genuinely stopped me in my tracks the first time I heard it. We all worry about memory loss. We do crossword puzzles in the morning, we take supplements, we eat blueberries, we try to stay sharp during the day. But what if I told you that the moment memory loss is actually happening is not during the day at all? It is not when you are distracted, it is not when you are stressed or overwhelmed, it is while you are sleeping. Literally at the moment when you think your brain is resting safely, memory is either being saved or being lost. And for most people over 60, it is quietly being lost every single night. Joining me again today is Korea's oldest practicing physician, Dr. Henry Lee. He has spent over 40 years treating seniors and studying the ancient principles of Korean medicine that have kept generations living strong and clear-minded well into old age. Doctor, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, John. I'm always grateful to be here with you. And yes, what you just described is the most important and most misunderstood part of memory health. People come to my office and they tell me about what they forgot. I understand their concern, but I tell them the more important question is not what did you forget? The more important question is what is happening at night while you sleep, because that is where the answer lives.
Let us start there, Doctor. What exactly is happening to memory during sleep, and why is it so different after 60?
Let me give you the clearest possible picture. During a healthy night of sleep, the brain cycles through several stages. The deepest stage, what scientists call slow-wave sleep or deep NREM sleep, is where something extraordinary happens. This is when the brain performs what I think of as the great transfer. Everything you experienced during the day, every face you encountered, every name you heard, every piece of information you tried to hold on to, all of it exists in the hippocampus in a fragile temporary form after you learn it. During deep sleep, the brain takes those fragile temporary files and begins the process of transferring them into long-term storage in the cortex. If that transfer does not complete, the memories dissolve by morning. They are simply gone, not retrieved incorrectly, gone.
So the deep sleep stage is not just about rest, it is the actual mechanism of memory formation.
People who are sleeping adequate hours by the clock, but never reaching adequate depth, they are spending hours in light sleep, in fragmented sleep, in sedated unconsciousness if they take medication, but the restorative deep stages are absent, and they wonder why they are tired, forgetful, foggy, disconnected. The hours in bed are not the problem, the depth is. And today, we're going to talk about 3 Korean medicine habits that specifically target that depth. Not habits for falling asleep faster, not habits for staying in bed longer, habits that change what happens inside the brain during the hours that matter most. In this episode, we will walk through all 3. The first involves a ritual with something you drink before bed. The second involves a specific point on the body that most people have never heard of. And I want to say now, the third one is, in my experience, the most overlooked by modern medicine, and for many of my patients, the most powerful.
3 habits, each targeting the deep sleep window where memory consolidation lives. Doctor, let us go to the first one.
The first habit is the Korean jujube tea ritual. In Korean, the jujube date is called daechu. It is a small, sweet, dark red fruit that has been at the center of Korean medicine for over 2,000 years. Every traditional Korean household kept dried daechu in the kitchen. It was not something reserved for medicine, it was simply part of daily life, the way you might keep garlic or ginger always on hand. Grandmothers simmered it, mothers served it, children grew up drinking it as part of the evening rhythm of the house. And now, after 2,000 years, the science is explaining precisely why it worked.
What does the science say?
The jujube seed contains a group of compounds called saponins and flavonoids. One in particular, called spinosyn, has been studied extensively for its effects on the nervous system. Spinosyn interacts directly with GABA receptors in the brain. GABA is the primary calming neurotransmitter. It is the chemical that shifts the brain from alert to quiet. Many prescription sleep medications work by targeting these exact same GABA receptors. The critical difference is that pharmaceutical sleep aids often overstimulate those receptors in a way that sedates the brain but simultaneously suppresses the slow-wave deep sleep stages we need for memory. They knock the person unconscious without allowing the restorative architecture of sleep to unfold. Jujube does something different. It gently modulates GABA activity in a way that supports the natural progression through sleep stages rather than bypassing them. The result is not unconsciousness, it's real sleep.
A study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology followed participants using jujube seed extract for several weeks. Researchers measured sleep architecture objectively, not just how long participants slept, but which stages they reached and for how long. They found significant increases in total NREM sleep duration, and specifically in slow-wave deep sleep. These are the exact stages where memory consolidation happens and where the glymphatics cleansing system operates at full capacity. The jujube was not helping people fall asleep, it was helping them reach and sustain the sleep that matters. I want to ask you about a patient, doctor.
Yes, I think of Dorothy often when I discuss this habit. She came to me at 73 years old, a retired librarian, a woman who had dedicated her life to books and language and the careful preservation of knowledge. She came to me because she was forgetting the names of authors she had read dozens of times, not obscure writers, authors she loved deeply, authors whose books lined her shelves. She would reach for a book and the name that should be as familiar as her own would simply not be there. She was frightened. She felt she was losing herself. When I evaluated her, her cognition in the office was largely intact. She could follow conversation, she could reason, she could remember what we discussed that day. But when I looked carefully at her sleep, the picture became clear. She was waking 2 to 3 times each night. She was lying in bed for 7 hours, but her deep sleep was minimal and fragmented. The filing system was not running. What did you recommend? I started her on the jujube tea ritual as the foundation. Each evening, about 45 minutes before bed, she would simmer 4 to 5 dried dachu dates in 2 cups of water for 15 to 20 minutes, not boiling, gently simmering. The water would turn a warm, reddish amber. She would add a thin slice of fresh ginger for circulation and warmth, which is a traditional Korean pairing. She would drink it slowly, warm, seated quietly, without screens, without distraction. The ritual of preparation is important. Korean medicine understands that the body is trained by patterns. The act of preparing this tea each evening became a signal. The aroma, the warmth, the quiet, the repetition. The nervous system learned this means the day is ending. Begin the transition to deep rest. Within 6 weeks, Dorothy reported she was sleeping through the night for the first time in years. Within 3 months, she called my office to report something she said she could not entirely explain. The names were coming back. The authors she loved were accessible again. She sent me a handwritten note. She was a librarian to the last. The note said, "I remember who wrote the books again." That's all.
That is everything. How should people prepare this at home?
It is simple. Dried jujube dates are widely available at Asian grocery stores and online. You use 4 to 5 dates, rinsed once in cool water. You simmer them in 2 cups of water over low heat for 15 to 20 minutes. The liquid will become golden to reddish in color. Add a slice or 2 of fresh ginger if you have it. Drink it warm, not hot, approximately 40 to 50 minutes before sleep. The most important instruction I give my patients is this: be consistent for at least 3 weeks before you judge it. 1 cup of jujube tea is a pleasant, warm drink. 3 weeks of jujube tea every evening is a reprogramming of your nighttime biology. The body responds to rhythm. Give it the rhythm.
Consistency as the mechanism. I love that framing. What is the second habit?
The second habit is the Anmien technique. Anmien is a Korean and Chinese medicine term that translates directly as peaceful sleep. There's a specific acupressure point on the body with this name, located in a place most people have never thought to touch, and it has a direct physiological pathway to the quality of deep sleep.
Where is this point?
Behind the ear. You find the hard, bony bump that sits behind the earlobe. That is the mastoid bone. You move your fingertip toward the back of the neck slowly, feeling along the base of the skull until you find a small, soft indentation or hollow between that bone and the thick vertical muscle of the neck. That soft spot is the Anmien point. In Korean and Chinese medicine, this point has been associated for centuries with what healers described as quieting the heart at night, settling the spirit before sleep, calming what we called the upward rushing of fire energy that disturbs the mind after dark.
In modern language, what does that describe?
It describes elevated nighttime cortisol. After 60, the body's cortisol regulation becomes less precise. Cortisol is the alertness hormone. It should follow a clear daily rhythm, high in the morning when you need to be alert and active, and very low by the time you lie down for sleep. But in many adults over 60, cortisol does not drop sufficiently in the evening. The nervous system remains subtly activated. People lie in bed exhausted but cannot quiet the mind. Thoughts race. The body feels tired, but the brain is still partially on guard. And physiologically, elevated cortisol actively prevents the transition from light sleep to deep sleep. The brain cannot descend into the slow wave stages when it is still running in mild alert mode.
That describes so many people I know, including myself on difficult nights.
And it is remarkably common in adults over 60. The Anmien point sits over a branch of the vagus nerve, the longest nerve in the body, which runs from the brainstem down through the neck and chest and into the abdomen. The vagus nerve is the primary highway of the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system that counterbalances the fight or flight response. When you apply gentle, firm pressure to this point, you activate vagal tone directly. The heart rate slows, breathing deepens, cortisol production is actively suppressed. The body shifts from alert to genuinely quiet. The door to deep sleep opens.
Is there scientific evidence for this specific effect?
A study published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine followed adults over 60 who practiced nightly acupressure for 8 weeks. The group targeting the Anmien point and related acupoints near the base of the skull showed a 34% improvement in slow-wave deep sleep duration compared to the control group. That is a significant recovery of the exact sleep stage that time and age have been stealing, and it required nothing more than knowing where to press and doing it consistently every night.
Tell me about a patient who experienced this.
Harold was 68 years old, a retired Marine engineer, a very practical, straightforward man who had spent his career solving mechanical problems. He came to me because his wife had insisted. She had watched him become forgetful in ways that alarmed her. He was missing scheduled appointments. He would leave water running, leave the stove on, arrive somewhere and forget why he came. Harold himself dismissed it. He told me he was fine, just tired. When I evaluated his sleep history, he had been on prescription sleep medication for 12 years. He was sleeping what appeared to be adequate hours, but the medication he was taking was known to suppress slow-wave sleep significantly. He was unconscious for 7 hours each night without the restorative architecture his brain needed. His memory was not being filed, night after 12 years of nights.
How did you approach that with him?
I knew Harold. He needed to understand the mechanism before he would trust a new approach, so I described the vagus nerve and the Anmien point in the language he understood. I said to him, "Harold, you have a control circuit behind your ear. This circuit connects directly to your heart rate, your respiration, and your cortisol production. If you apply the correct pressure to this circuit for 3 minutes each night before sleep, you will shift your entire physiology into the state required for deep sleep." He looked at me for a long moment and said, "Why has nobody told me this before?" I told him, "It is in the oldest Korean medical manuals. It simply has not made it into the average doctor's office." He said, "All right, let us try it."
And the results?
Harold used both thumbs, one on each Anmien point simultaneously, applying gentle, firm pressure for 3 minutes each night while lying in bed with eyes closed. He also, with the careful guidance of his prescribing physician, began the slow process of reducing his sleep medication over several months. The combination allowed him to achieve genuine physiological deep sleep for what may have been for the first time in over a decade. 2 weeks after beginning the technique, Harold called my office. He said one word before he said anything else. He said,
rested. I didn't understand at first. He said, "I woke up this morning and I felt rested." I had forgotten what that felt like. Within 4 months, his wife reported that her husband was back. The appointments were being kept. The stove was being turned off. The fog that had grown around him was clearing.
For anyone wanting to try the Anmian technique at home, what is the exact practice?
Lie in bed, ready for sleep. Find the Anmian point behind both ears. You will feel the hollow in that soft tissue between the mastoid bone and the base of the skull. Using both thumbs or both index fingers, apply firm but never painful circular pressure, small inward circles toward the midline of the neck. While you do this, breathe slowly and deliberately. Inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6. The longer exhale is important because it directly activates the parasympathetic response. Do this for 3 full minutes. If sleep arrives before 3 minutes are complete, that is not a failure. That is the goal. Do not resist it. Let the sleep take you. The practice works best when done consistently at the same time each night as part of a predictable bedtime sequence. The body, as Korean medicine has always understood, responds to pattern.
Before we move on to trick 3, I want to take a moment because conversations like this one are exactly why I started looking into a resource I came across a while back. It is called the Senior Body Reset After 60. I'll be honest with you, when I first found it, I was not expecting much, but it truly changed the way I think about what the body needs after 60. It covers exactly what we talk about on this show, how to reset your body's natural systems through daily habits, not medications. Better sleep, stronger circulation, sharper memory, more energy throughout the day. And it does all of this through practical, science-backed steps that seniors can actually apply. No complicated routines, no gym memberships required. If you are someone who listens to this show and thinks, I want to actually do something with this information, this is the resource I would point you toward. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment right below this video. Now, doctor, let's keep going because the third habit is the one I suspect will truly surprise people.
I think it will. The third habit is the Korean evening foot bath, known in traditional practice as the Jokyo ritual. And I want to explain it first in terms of science, because when people understand why it works, they take it seriously in a way they might not if I simply told them to soak their feet. Please go ahead. For the brain to enter and sustain deep, slow-wave sleep, your core body temperature must drop. This is a biological requirement, not a preference. Research confirms that a reduction of approximately 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit in core body temperature is one of the primary physiological signals that triggers the transition from light sleep to deep slow-wave sleep. Without this temperature drop, the brain may cycle through light sleep stages repeatedly, but never descend into the restorative depth. Most people don't know this. They focus entirely on their mind at bedtime, on quieting their thoughts, on not looking at their phone. But the thermal signal is equally important, and it's one that most seniors are actively working against without realizing it.
How do people work against it?
They wear socks to bed because their feet are cold. They use very warm blankets. They keep bedrooms too warm. They do not realize that a cold bedroom and cool extremities are not problems to be solved. They are conditions that support the thermal drop the brain is waiting for. The Korean foot bath works in a beautiful and somewhat counterintuitive way. You immerse the feet in warm, not hot, water for 15 minutes before bed. The warmth causes the blood vessels in the feet and lower legs to dilate. Blood rushes to the surface of the skin in the extremities. As that warm blood pools near the surface of the feet, heat dissipates from the body. The core temperature begins to drop. The brain detects this thermal signal and interprets it as the precise condition required for deep sleep initiation. The foot bath is not warming the body into sleep. It is redistributing heat so that the core cools and the brain's deepest sleep mechanisms activate.
That is not at all what I would have expected. It seems almost backwards. Korean medicine has always understood that you must prepare the body for sleep, not push the body towards sleep. You create the conditions. You let the biology follow. In Korean, there is a saying, Bal itatu shada, which means the feet are warm. In the old tradition, saying someone's feet were warm was a way of saying they slept well, they were healthy, they were thriving.
Korean grandmothers check children's feet before bed the way other cultures check for fevers. They understood the connection. And the science confirms this? A study published in the European Journal of Neurology examined older adults over 60 who performed warm foot baths in the hour before bedtime each evening for several weeks. Researchers measured sleep stages objectively through the night. The foot bath group showed significantly faster transitions into N3 deep sleep and meaningfully longer total duration of slow wave sleep compared to the control group. They fell into the right depth sooner and stayed there longer. For a population that has already lost a large percentage of their deep sleep to the aging process, recovering any significant portion of that depth through a 15-minute evening ritual is profoundly valuable.
What do Koreans traditionally add to the foot bath water?
Traditionally, 2 additions are most common. The first is fresh ginger. Ginger intensifies the vasodilation, the opening of blood vessels in the feet. It amplifies the thermal mechanism, making the redistribution of heat more efficient. The second is mugwort, called suk in Korean. Mugwort has been used in Korean medicine for centuries in a practice called moxibustion, where it is applied near acupressure points for its warming and circulation-enhancing properties. In a foot bath, mugwort contributes mild anti-inflammatory compounds that reduce the low-grade physical discomfort that often keeps older adults hovering in light sleep, the aching joints, the restless legs, the subtle tension in the feet and calves. These are not dramatic pains, but they are enough to keep the nervous system just alert enough to prevent deep sleep. Mugwort quiets them.
Not a pharmaceutical intervention, not a dramatic procedure. A 15-minute ritual performed every evening. A small, ancient Korean practice that creates the thermal condition the aging brain is waiting for. And when that condition is met, the brain descends into slow-wave sleep. The glymphatic system runs its cleansing cycle, the toxic proteins are flushed, and the memories from that day are filed into long-term storage. The brain does not need to be forced, it needs to be invited. Korean medicine understood that. The warm tea, the gentle pressure, a small basin of warm water and ginger before bed. These things are not small. For the brain working to save your life and your memories while you sleep, these things are everything.
That brings everything full circle. 3 Korean habits. The jujube tea, which gently activates the GABA pathways that allow slow-wave sleep to unfold naturally without suppression. The Onmyeon acupressure technique, which silences the cortisol overactivation that blocks the transition to deep sleep and activates the vagus nerve pathway to genuine physiological calm. And the Korean foot bath, which creates the precise thermal conditions the aging brain needs to cross the threshold into the slow-wave sleep where memories are saved and the brain cleanses itself for another day.
To anyone who has been quietly afraid of their own memory, you did not lose those memories. In many cases, they were simply never fully saved. The brain tried to file them away safely in the night, but the conditions were not right, and the filing system could not complete its work. Fix the night, and you begin to fix the forgetting. That is not a hope. That is what the body is designed to do when we give it what it needs. Korean medicine has understood this. A warm tea, a gentle pressure, a small basin of warm water and ginger before bed. These things are not small. For the brain working to save your life and your memories while you sleep, these things are everything.